A beautiful Friday evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you're coming from. We apologize starting off that we weren't able to broadcast live this session. Unfortunately, some unexpected technical difficulties have occurred, but we're recording this session for you, so I hope you'll tune in. It'll be on the channel on YouTube, Facebook, and I'm really, really excited because this is some really, really important information that I want to be able to share with you, and especially a really important person, more importantly, that I want to share with you. This lady, I've known her for over 2 decades. This lady has not only inspired me because of her testimony, because of the work that she's doing with this practice, but also, she's inspired me in my own personal journey. So I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say. She's going to talk about optimal strategies for mind, body, and breath to give you, that elevated performance, elevated health, well-being, as well as regeneration. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, yoga master, forever student, Bri Manglapus. Hey, girl.
Hello, everyone. Okay, oh my gosh, this is my first podcast. So thank you Elle, so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So, Bri, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
I'm a professional yoga instructor. I have been teaching for around 9 years, and I have been training for 10 years. So I started very young. I was about 17 when I discovered the practice, and I decided to really dive deeper into yoga even before going to college. So I told my parents that I was like, right after high school, I was like, this is what I want to do. My heart is in it. The studying yoga is just as much money as going to college. So I wanted to prioritize that because I was just so full on into that. Like I wanted to study that. And I got the go signal. So I've been doing that ever since, and I haven't stopped.
Excellent. Well, so I've known Bri a very, very long time, and it's just a testament to see how this practice actually changes, not only physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So, Bri, can you tell me, first of all, why you got into the practice in the first place, and what about it was calling to you?
Well, it started from a very, I don't want to use the word shallow, but it was very, it was attractive to me because I was into martial arts. I was always jumping around martial arts. I trained boxing, a little bit of jujitsu and wushu and karate and all that stuff. So it kind of goes down that same category. But what really attracted me to yoga was ever since I was a kid or around a preteen, I always had a very severe insomnia. I could never sleep. I always had a hard time sleeping. And when I was around 14, I was on actual medications for sleeping, which wasn't good. It was heavy medications for me to be able to sleep. And when I read about yoga, I heard that it helps insomnia. So that was kind of like the number one thing that was like, oh my God, like this helps with sleeping. Okay, like I want to give this a shot. And my aunt was actually one of the pioneers that brought yoga to the Philippines. She started Yoga Manila. So she was one of the original first teachers in Manila. So I already had kind of like a door to it.
Excellent. And fast forward now, what do you see? I mean, obviously during this pandemic, it's difficult for people to be able to go into a class, let alone, and that's why we want to encourage people to practice on their own and to practice safely. But how do you see this practice helping people not only, on a physical aspect, but also on a mental and emotional state, especially during this time when there's so much challenging uncertainty and adversity, and we need more balance to counteract that stress?
Yeah, this whole pandemic, it's been pretty crazy, and I know a lot of people who's been diving deeper into these mindful practices because our society, we're so fast paced, And it's easy to not hear what your body needs or what your soul needs when there's so much distractions, there's so much things going on, there's work and our schedule and everything, and now that we're all kind of forced to be still, forced to be in one, like we can't travel to escape what we're feeling, we can't see our friends, we can't really go out and drink, like we're all so this COVID has been, I mean, as terrible as it's been, it's also a portal for us to really go inside and to face the things that we need to deal with within ourselves. So I've been seeing a lot of people, they've really been eager to, they've been eager to learn about yoga, they've been eager to learn about mindfulness, because they're stuck with themselves and they're like, okay, I really got to do something now because I'm going crazy, and the veil is kind of coming down, you know, and the dark shadows that you know people deal with, that they've been running away from, are now in front of them. They have nowhere to go. So yeah, I've been getting so many messages of people asking me how to start a practice, especially now. I can't go out. I want to make sure I'm doing it safely and correctly and all that stuff.
So give us a little, for those who don't know much about the practice, or perhaps if the practice is something that's more of a, maybe they've compartmentalized it as more of a physical exertion or something to maintain their fitness. And so how does movement and breath work and sitting down and mindful exercises, how does that help us go deeper within? How does that, especially when we're so used to spending more times on our careers than we do working on ourselves, how is that going to, you know, because at the end of the day, it's that battle between, you know, oh, it's counterintuitive. If there's so much crazy, I got to do more crazy to make sure that the crazy doesn't beat me. When the practice is instead telling us, no, try not to feed that impulse. Instead, what if you just remain still and learn to be without what is? What do you mean be with what is? What is not cool. How am I going to be with what is? So how does this, can you just shed a little bit of light on a bird's eye view of what this practice does to center ourselves in order to be resilient?
What's one, and why I think yoga is such a gem is because the system of yoga is designed to really make us become more aware of our thoughts. And it's really all that, it's actually very simple, which a lot of people have a hard time getting. People are so used to explosive, mental stuff. And when I tell them the technique, they're just like, that's it. Like, that's it. But when they actually do it and sit with it, they're just so confused. They're like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Am I meditating correctly? Blah, blah, blah. You know, all those questions start rising up. But the simplest way I can really explain it, it's being able to not identify yourself with your thoughts. You know, it's the answer is you.
Yeah.
You're already whole. We're already complete. You know, you're not gonna become more, you're already whole. And it's really a mindful practice of being able to take a step back and know that you're not your anger, you're not your depression, you're not your anxiety, you're not these crazy emotions or bad things that happen to you from the outside, you're not your trauma, you're not all the negative things that has happened to you. And that's the challenge, you know, because we identify ourselves with what we feel and things that happen to us. And it's an ongoing process and it doesn't happen overnight. And I really believe that as we grow up, life will demand a different version of you. So it's a practice that you really need to continue, and it will always change. And it will always be challenging.
Absolutely. I like what you said. You know, at the end of the day, I think so much of our suffering is exactly in that, when we identify with this. I mean, that's where shame comes from at the end of the day, right? You know, when we identify with all of these fears, which are in the end rooted in, am I enough? Am I going to be love? Am I worthy of love? Am I not going to have love? And so with the practice, it's just like it's like we're so used to running around like these headless chickens. You know, when you see a child, he's just freaking out, you know, when you're in that state of panic or that flux, there's no order. And so that's what we are. We're constantly in the state of flux. And that's why when you tell us to sit still, like the child in a tantrum, we don't know what to do. It's so out of ordinary, because even though, yes, these are our minds and our bodies and our spirits, are we actually in control of them, or are they controlling us? Are we being habitually led by previous experiences or traumas, like you said, or these thoughts and emotions without actually questioning them? And so, Bri, can you tell me a little bit about the practice of like meta-awareness, metacognition, where we think about what we think about and we actually are able to question our thoughts and emotions rather than ourselves?
Yes. Well, there are so many different practices. I was trained under what they call Vipassana meditation. I don't know if you've heard of it before. Feel free to search it up. Vipassana meditation. So there are many different types of meditation techniques. It's good to find what suits best for your personality. You know, I don't believe it's a one fit all kind of thing. What's good for me might not be good for you, right? So, but I was trained under Vipassana meditation, and it's pretty much on self-observation. So it's all about on focusing on the breath. It's all about being still, to the point that your body is almost screaming. It's pretty intense. They have retreats that go on for like 2 weeks, like a 2 week silent retreat. If you've ever experienced or heard of that, they have walking meditation as well, where you literally have to count every single movement and step that you do. But it's very simple. It's just all on naming everything that you feel. So this technique, you can actually use it on a day-to-day life. You can use it while you're cooking. You can use it while you're driving. And it's just that whole practice of calling things out before you react. Okay, because we want to be more responsive to life. We don't want to be more reactive. You know, we want to be able to respond the best way we possibly can in that moment. You know, we're people, we fail. Sometimes it's just too overwhelming. But
So
to be
intention over habit.
Exactly. So to be like, okay, if I'm anxious, to call it out. My teacher would always tell me, name it. What are you feeling? Name it. Anger, anger, anger. Sad, sad, sad. Grief, grief, grief. Pain, pain, pain. Or depression. Like to really call it out. And it's really that practice of naming things. You know, sometimes you really just got to give it a name.
So you know it's not who you are. So, you know, like, well, if your name is anxiousness, then you must not be Elle.
Exactly. So it's it's very simple. It's very practical. It's one of the more practical meditation techniques, which I like. You know, they have a lot of visualization meditation, which is nice too if you want to decompress and de-stress. But for me, I really find it, through all my studies, the most practical, in a way that we become more responsive. You know, we can respond to life and without just being so explosive and reacting to things, right? And letting emotion and pain take over us so quickly.
Absolutely. I think I like what you mean by being responsive. It's that rather than being reactive, that we're actually proactive, and we choose. That the fact that we actually can choose our responses and our reactions to things, whether we give ourselves the space and the time to make that choice for ourselves, or whether our weaker impulses make those choices for us. And you know, obviously, what I like about that particular meditation as well is that because you're observing everything, and you have to name everything, which means you have to pay attention to the right now. And I think, at least in my own personal experience, you know, anxiety was my roommate. That's how I grew up. And I always knew like most of my suffering came from not being in the present. You know, time travels so much running around in the past, like what should I have done, and running around in the future, what am I supposed to do? Am I going to actually be able to do it? And so we're never in the present. And so of course nothing's ever going to turn out great because we don't give our full energy and focus at the end of the day, like our time, energy, and focus. That's our, you know, our most valuable resource. We don't even know where we're spending it. But
Correct.
that's yeah.
It's also a great way because a lot of the way we react comes from things we experience as a child. You know, like,
Yep.
how do I give an example? We can use relationships. I like to use relationships because our partners usually become our mirrors, right? Like our partner will do something and it will be a trigger to us. But if my friend does it, it doesn't trigger me. But it's completely different when it's someone that you have a life with, that, you know, you have a life with, you're sharing your day-to-day life with. Suddenly all your triggers start coming up and we start reacting in a way. If, let's say, our parents went through a bad divorce, and a child or an adult will have this fear of it's never going to work out, or my marriage will never work out, or my husband is always going to cheat on me. Let's say the dad was a cheater. Oh, my husband's been cheating, but actually he's not. So we project a lot of our traumas into people, into situations. And what's wonderful about the practice is if we become really fully aware, and when you do it regularly and when you're disciplined with it, you'll start to have very deep realizations, self-realizations of yourself, of why I act this way.
Yes.
Why do I act all jealous? Why do I act like everything is not going to work out? Why? And you can find the root of the problem. It's really all, you need to heal the root of it. You know, we need to question ourselves and be like, okay, I am acting this way because I experienced this as a child, or this happened to me as a child, or I saw this in my parents.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about the practice, is you really start to peel off layers of why we act a certain way. We can heal the root of what it is, and we can change the pattern.
Yes.
You know,
interrupt that loop. I think, but the thing is, we need to be aware of it before we can even do anything. I think we so often we focus on what we need to do to be better, and we focus so much on doing. What are the things I need to accomplish to get where I want to be, or to be who I want to be, and we don't even know where we're starting. We have no starting point. And so how can, you know, if you look at any map or any GPS, you need a starting point. And so we aimlessly wander around. We focus so much on doing. We often forget how to be. So Bri, tell me how the practice uses mind, body, spirit, breath work, how it is able to use it in unison to be able to reach that state of awareness and that state of healing at the end of the day.
Well, the asana, the English translation is postures. Okay, so if people are like, what the heck is asana, right? It's just Sanskrit word for postures. So when we do our yoga practice, the physical side of it, when we move into all those dynamic sequences, you know, Ashtanga, Vinyasa, Bikram, all those different types of styles, it really all comes from one root, which is Hatha. All the poses are Hatha based, but throughout the generations, they come up with their own system. All right, so each system is designed because we want to start with our body. Okay, usually we start with our body. A lot of the times, stress, our emotions, everything gets trapped inside our body. Like, let's say we grieve someone, we tend to close up our chest. You know, let's say we get angry, we start to tense up our shoulders, we start to clench up our fists. People with anxiety, they usually like close their hands a lot. They have a lot of tension in their hands. So when we come into the mat and we practice all these postures, it almost works like acupuncture, where the postures are meant to open up uh, energetic spaces in the body where emotions and experiences get trapped in, so it can come out. So after you come from a full yoga class, when you hit the floor and they ask you to be still, you really reach this state of clarity and release. And from there, you can witness the union of your mind, body, and spirit. So they say, oh, Savasana, now your mind, body, and spirit is now being united. That's a little bit twisted, because it's already united. We're not separate from our mind, body, and spirit. It's always going to be united. It's just our mind is just always
not aware of it.
We're aware of it. Exactly. So you reach that state where you feel the unification of your mind, body, and spirit. Not that it is uniting.
Yeah.
It's already uniting, but you get to experience it. And that's where we start to tap in deeper.
Yeah. I love that, because then we misinterpret practice quite often until we spend long enough with it to realize what the true benefits are. And usually aren't the benefits that we started doing it in the first place. We do it because it's sexy, it's fun, makes me feel good. But the longer we go into it, my father's been practicing yoga for decades. And now when I see him practicing, he's just sitting down. Yeah. And I love what you said, is like then that mind, body, and spirit is always there. It's always connected. But we're not always aware of it because we're so busy with all the other crap, like the stress, like the tension. And so it's blocking us. The limiting beliefs are blocking us. There's all of these different things that are these strongholds, these obstacles from us experiencing our true authentic selves. And that's including shame. That's including all of the things that we don't address with our coping strategies of distraction, which, by the way, if we don't address it, they're not going to go anywhere. And you'll see, I think most people know that they don't go anywhere. And so this practice allow us to, one by one, if you ever hear the word peeling away the layers are basically blocking us from experiencing that union. So, Bri, I wonder if you can talk us through some practical strategies that we can take at home. Let's say if I wanted to have a killer routine to help ground my breath, to help, calm my nervous system, calm the stress, first interrupt that, that downward spiral, and then to be able to ground myself, and as well as move some postures to really center everything together. Can you share something with that?
Okay. Well, for someone that, let's say, has never tried yoga or anything yoga class related, there's this thing that it's very, very foundational, and you can actually tell, as a yoga teacher, you can tell so much about a person's body and personality and how they react to themselves by just doing sun salutations. Okay, sun salut, like there's different variations of sun salutations, but any variation of a sun salutation, if you can do that every day, that is a great way to start a practice. Even just 10 to 15 minutes a day. Go to YouTube, type in sun salutation, do that every day, memorize it. That is a great way to build a perfect foundation for any yoga practice, especially the asana practice. Sun salutations are wonderful to get rid of stagnant energy. It targets all the small and big muscle groups in the body that you want to stretch. So other than the sun salutation, something that I really, really love to do, and I think is great for our fast-paced society, would be putting your legs up the wall and staying there for 5, 10, and if you can increase it to 15 minutes.
So lying on the ground, the butt is against the wall, and the legs are you're basically at a right angle. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And just putting your hands up, allowing the blood from your feet to flow down.
Hands up above our head on the ground, or just like that? Okay, in the crucifix. Okay.
spread out, legs up. Your butt doesn't need to be against the wall. Feel free to modify based on your flexibility. Usually if the butt is up against the wall, the hamstrings are very, very open. So for someone that doesn't have, very open hamstrings, they can be a little bit further from the wall. But that is a great restorative pose. We're always standing on our feet. Our feet are always jammed into shoes, especially if you're in a corporate job. For ladies that are always in heels, our feet is our foundation. That's what holds us up. That's what holds our whole structure up. And to be able to lift your feet up and to drain the blood from your feet, allow the blood to drain down, give your feet a break. It sends more blood flow to your reproductive area, especially if women have a lot of cramping during their cycle. It's a great way to reduce cramping. It also slows down the heart. It gives your heart a break. Since the blood is flowing down from the legs, your heart doesn't need a pump to work so hard to pump blood through your system. So it's a great restorative pose.
Does this qualify as an inversion?
Yes and no. I mean, you have the benefits of the inversion, but for someone who can't invert, this is also the modification.
Excellent. And what about postures that will help specifically with calming the nervous system? Let's say, okay, let's do the worst case scenario. Either I just got off the phone, got some bad news, or it's COVID, I lost my job, or the internet's not working and I can't post the podcast or broadcast the podcast. Or just if you're in the middle of crisis, which is the world is collectively going through, we could all use a posture that will facilitate us to just slow down and find stillness.
When it comes to a crisis, nothing beats deep diaphragmatic breathing. But if we're touching down on postures that calm down the nervous system would be more on forward folds. Just folding forward, your legs wide apart, folding forward. Anything folding forward usually calms down the nervous system, helps anxiety.
And what is it about the forward fold that does that?
It's just the way of your heart closing. It's a very comforting feeling. Also, posture like it's in the tip of my tongue, child's pose. Child's pose, you feel like you're back in the womb-ish, being curdled up.
When we see like people going through panic attacks, they do compression. Like they say, like you hold yourself, or they have to be swaddled or to be able to just.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent.
So our body really reacts to our emotions, and you can see it. People tell me like, are you sure that's not just like hullabaloo? I'm just like, no, look at it. Look at someone.
Well, I think right now the science is pouring out. There are articles all over, the clinical studies of Harvard University that, have all this data and biometrics pointing to higher, heart rate variability, lower blood pressure, and, better cardiovascular circulation. At this point, maybe we can start to destigmatize the hullabaloo.
If people really listen to their bodies, I mean, you feel it. How many people say that, when they're anxious, they start having like acid reflux, or they want to go to the bathroom because they're stressed. I mean, it's just undeniable at this point.
And it's like there's this perpetuating cycle. Whereas, like when we have a stressful thought, produces a stressful emotion, which manifests in stress in the body, like a physiological response, like the tightening up, palpitations, all of a sudden the sympathetic nervous system shoots up to the roof. And then that biological response also, creates a hormonal response of more cortisol, more adrenaline, which then feeds back into the loop of reinforcing a negative thought, reinforcing an emotion, reinforcing the physiological symptom. And so at some point or another, there's either you stop the thought, the emotion, or you got to put a wedge in that cycle. And it's just common sense. Like if we're able to facilitate, and that's the beautiful thing about this practice, is we can actually manipulate the body's systems to our advantage. So you said this very interesting thing earlier. In crisis, nothing is better than diaphragmatic breathing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Bri?
So I learned this technique. My teacher calls it breath illumination, and she actually doesn't come from a yogic background. Her foundation and her practice is biomechanics. So it was a technique that was very unique when I found her. And she speaks very much about diaphragmatic breathing and being able to feel the breath all the way to our perineum. Okay, because a lot of the times we're chest breathers. We breathe from up here, I think until about the age 5. Like about around 5 years old, it could happen like if you're skateboarding and you fall, you hurt your ribs, and it's starting to be painful to breathe down there. So suddenly we just end up becoming a chest breather. Or if we're full from eating, try to breathe to your belly after having a meal. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times our breath as we age gets stuck up here. We have a very shallow breathing. We're not actually using everything to its full capacity. What we call in yoga prana, which is our life force. In Chinese, I think it's chi. In Japanese, it's ki. Anyways, our life force, I'm going to use the term prana. We want to be able to breathe prana into the entire spine. So being able to send the prana, the life force, all the way down to our perineum. That's where the technique really...
Can you point to everyone where the perineum is?
So the perineum is, for a very simple way to understand, it's if you're trying the muscle where you hold, if you want to pee, that's where the perineum is, like the pelvic floor muscles. It's shaped like a diamond. And when you take an inhale, when you're breathing, you actually imagine that pelvic floor, that diamond, imagine it's a trampoline. When you take an inhale, you actually want to feel your breath push the trampoline down. Okay, you're not pushing like you're going to the bathroom. You're not using the muscles to push. It's actually the inhalation, the pressure of the air that pushes that trampoline down.
That's excellent. No, that's good. Because one of my professions is a singer, and basically your perineum. Let's just be real. It's all the way down the area of your crotch. And my vocal teacher would always say, she didn't use this word, but she's like, you got to sing from your crotch. And was it that like so many times when we breathe, because I think it's also the lack of understanding of the breath is just there to allow us to survive. We settle for what's good enough because we don't have the proper education or the knowledge of what we're capable of if we utilize, that prana, the actual breath. We utilize that, what it's able to do. Now, as a singer, you'd be surprised the amount of power that you get from breathing from your crotch. So what does using the fullness of your lungs capacity, allowing the breath to use that perineum as this launch or trampoline, what does that do to the body if we're able to do that? Apart from obviously, of course, it should be able to help our endurance, but what exactly happens there?
Well, this technique, the breath illumination technique, it really works in calming the nervous system down. So when we talk about deep breathing, there are 3 steps to a full system Because a lot of the times there are so many breath works that are being shared that are very invigorating, you know, like huffing and puffing and all these.
Wim Hof and all that, the higher fire breath. It's such a popular thing now.
Yeah, very invigorating breath work, which is not necessarily bad. It's just you want to make sure you work on the foundational breath work before you reach the invigorating part. Because if you have a lot of depression or anxiety, I want you to think of it like a cup that's full of depression or anxiety. Let's say that the energy in that cup is depression or addiction or trauma. And when you jump straight to a very invigorating type of breath work, you're just pouring more energy into what you already have in your body. So a lot of the times when people do this huffing, puffing, all these, I like to practice these invigorating breath works as well. But when they jump straight into that, they have panic attacks. They have anxiety attacks. They start feeling like really wired and really crazy and like, like what is going on? So this diaphragmatic breathing is what I really like to touch base on because it's very foundational. You know, there are a lot of hardcore, amazing athletes with rock hard abs, and they do like all these superhuman stuff, but they can't actually breathe down into their belly. It's like so tough. And I always tell my students that a healthy muscle is a muscle that can contract and relax when you want it to. You know, not when it's just always contract, not when it always just looks hard, or not when it's just always too soft. You have to be able to have that mind and body connection to your muscles, and it should be able to listen to what you want it to do.
I think that's often like we're very one-sided with, you know, our physical practice because we're training our bodies to complete a specific task, like a sport, or to complete a task in order to get maybe an aesthetic view, or to complete a task to lose the weight. But we don't actually think of a task or the practice as something that creates balance. And the balance is also, you know, not just hard. The body needs to be able to bend or it breaks. The balance is, you know, it's not just being able to be strong, but like you said, this is always something I love that, you know, working when we've done practices together, is that a true strong person is able to control their bodies, commands ownership over their body rather than the other way around. So are there some guidelines that you can walk us through? Maybe I can do the breath work with you right now.
So I like to practice I do it while I'm sitting up, but in the beginning it's nice to lay down on the mat just so the muscles are completely relaxed. And it's a 3-dimensional breathing pattern. Shall I demonstrate?
Yes, please.
I'm with child.
I'm with child.
Okay, so you want to put your knees up, buckle your knees in together, and usually there's this little arch. Just make sure you kind of just tuck your tailbone under so you can find length in the lower back.
Okay, I'm gonna do this with you.
Okay.
You're gonna give me some time. She's on the ground, folks. I've gotta be on the ground too.
So if you find like you might need a little cushion in the back of the head just to really elongate the back of the neck, you can always use a pillow.
And is there some rules of doing this? Like, is this best to be done in the morning during our biological peak time? Is it best? Should we not be able to? I know some breathing exercises we shouldn't be doing before bed. Can anyone do this at any time, any place, anywhere?
Anytime, any place, whenever they feel like it. I like to do it in the morning and in the evening.
Okay. And how long does it take?
You can start with 10 breaths, 10 to 15 breaths, or you can start with 5 to 10 minutes. You can put on a timer. Set your timer for 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Practice the technique.
All right.
Doesn't matter how many you do until your timer goes off. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'll let you know the technique first before you try. The first inhalation, you want to be able to push your lower belly out like a balloon.
Okay.
And when you inhale, a lot of the times in yoga, like the very basic, ujjayi breath that everyone knows right away, we usually breathe like the back of the throat, right?
Yeah.
But in this technique, you actually want to use your nose.
Okay. In and out through the nose.
Yes, in and out through the nose. But the inhalation is going to be very sharp because there's a lot of, in this bone right here, behind this bone, there's a lot of like ligaments, and there's this push, or the ligaments that push up, that actually works on refreshing the hormones, and it hits the pineal gland.
Okay.
So when you make this sound, yeah. So just know that that inhale is going to be very sharp. You want to activate like the sinuses. It really pulls up, gives yourself like a facelift, and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, I can feel it goes like,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a very sharp inhalation. And when you inhale, the belly's going to push out, followed by the second muscle, which will be the perineum. And then the third will be the chest.
Okay, so belly, perineum, chest. Okay. I'm with child. Okay.
And then on an exhalation, you don't want to suck the belly in. You just exhale slowly, release, allow the belly to slowly pull down naturally. So you can look at me first. I like to put my hand here just so I can feel my lower belly.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it in for as long as you can. And then with an exhale, the belly, the perineum, and then the chest goes down. So again, it's a 3-dimensional breath pattern. Belly, perineum, chest. It's almost like a wave.
Yeah.
You'll feel like this wave.
It doesn't reverse out. It doesn't go belly, perineum, chest, perineum, belly.
Belly, perineum, chest. Exhale, belly, perineum, chest.
Okay. So when you mentioned earlier that the perineum is something that we don't necessarily want to be pushing, but we're allowing it to lengthen down because of the breath itself.
Yeah, you want it doesn't happen right away. Naturally, your bigger group of muscles are gonna want to help. So in the beginning, you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm kind of pushing out, or you'll feel like your butt or like your shoulders. Like the bigger group of muscles is gonna like want to help you out.
Okay.
It's a very, very small muscle. So try to close your
eyes. That's a great thing about this practice, though. When you do some of the most biggest, fundamental shifts that I've seen don't necessarily mean that we have to do these big changes in our practice. Sometimes they're like the most minute details. Like, like people are like, what do you mean? What's a perineum? I breathe. Or, when we do certain like stretches and we actually work on supporting ligaments and tendons rather than the muscle itself, like these little things, these little minute parts of our body that we're not even aware of, let alone trying to control. But over time, over practice, over repetition, like we actually can control these places. We just haven't tried. So this is okay. All right, let's do it.
Okay, so lay down. I'm gonna guide you. Okay. Knuckle your knees in a little bit. Okay, like kind of broaden out your shoulders. Tuck your chin in. Just make sure the spine is like nicely elongated. And just be a little patient with yourself. You can take a few breaths just to kind of observe and feel where the breath is moving around. Do you feel it more in the chest? Do you feel it more in the lower belly? Don't control it just yet. Just observe. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to take that sharp breath in, push your belly up, followed by the chest. With an exhale, belly, the perineum starts to move back in, the chest deflates. Then again, inhale, push that belly out. Bring your mind's eye into your perineum. So there are a lot of ways that we can move energy in the body. Two ways that I really love to focus on is breath and attention. So when you bring your attention somewhere, you know, when people say, look at your big toe, like, can you feel your big toe? Actually can. If you really focus on it, you could feel the throbbing, you can feel the heat. But can you feel your big toe when you're thinking of food? You know, when you're thinking of your vacation or what you did or the conversation you have. So a great way to connect with your body is to bring your attention into those body parts, those muscles, those areas that you want to connect with. So if you can really bring your mind's eye into your perineum, close your eyes.
By the way, am I doing the technique in time? Like, because I noticed I was going maybe a little fast, whereas when I went, it went belly, perineum, chest. Should I be going belly, perineum, chest?
Actually, there's no right or wrong. I like to mix it up a bit. You know, some days I'm a little bit more excited and I'm quick about it. There's some days where I really need to slow down and I breathe a little slower. So feel free to apply the technique, play around with the technique. And I always tell my students that there's no right or wrong. Okay, sometimes it's wrong because that's not how the system was designed. Like Ashtanga, it's like, oh no, that's not Ashtanga. We don't do it that way. Oh no, it's not like, but really the only thing what's wrong is something that's gonna injure you or hurt you. So keep an open mind, you know, and if anyone tells you that's incorrect, ask them why.
I think it's all, yeah. I think it's also because like you said, we're trying to activate parts of our body that are not usually in our modus operandum. And so if we're going to try and connect to those parts, it's like, you know, when you have a surgery on your hand and let's say your hand got cut off. This is a terrible analogy. Say your hand got cut off and you know, you're just trying to find the nerve endings and it takes a while for you to actually feel it. And sometimes it means just playing around with it. And so like exploring, like, even though it's not right, well, sometimes you got to figure out what the wrong or what the inefficient parts are, or play or move around it a little bit to figure out how to use it properly.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Am I waiting for you?
Yeah. Okay. So close your eyes. Bring your mind's eye up and down the spine. Okay. I want you to become fully aware of that spine. That spine that really, it's the structure, the backbone, what keeps our brain up. I want you to feel the breath moving around, up and down that spine. Guide the energy, okay, using your attention. Bring your mind's eye inside. And whenever you're ready, you're going to take an inhale. Feel that belly expand, the perineum push out, the chest expands. With an exhale, deflate the belly, the perineum slowly moves in, and the chest deflates as well. Take a breath in. Can you feel it in your perineum?
Faintly. But
Faintly. Sometimes it comes and goes. Like sometimes you're like, oh, there it is. Like I kind of got it, and then the next time you do it, you're like, oh, it didn't work. You're still.
But I'm still like it's like what we said. It's like we're gaining familiarity with those parts. Okay, I can.
Creating that connection again. And then later on, it just becomes very natural.
So how long should can we practice this to get the fullness of the results? Like how many breath cycles?
If you have
all day.
if you have the time, I mean, if you have the time, 45 minutes. Imagine breathing like that for 40.
Wow, 45 minutes. So have you ever used this as a biohack for certain things you needed to get ready for, or perhaps you had a really stressful day, or you're about to have like a high pressure meeting, or you're trying to be able to sleep? Is, as you mentioned, this allows us to calm the nervous system, especially in crisis. Can you talk a little bit about the medicinal benefits of it? Perhaps, for someone who wants to understand a little bit more of how it affects our anatomy and therefore affects our health and therefore affects our behaviors and experiences.
I use it even if I'm stuck in a very uncomfortable conversation.
Wait, do you say like, sorry, excuse me 1 second, can you keep talking and I'm just gonna lay down?
No, I'm there sitting down at the table having an uncomfortable conversation, and I'll start applying the diaphragmatic breathing.
And what does it feel like?
It makes me much more rational.
Rather than emotional.
I'm able to just rationalize things better, and it really makes you pause before. I don't want to say something stupid. I don't want to say something that's going to make it worse. I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. So when I start, every time I'm in an uncomfortable situation, when I'm stressed, if there's like a family problem that I'm going through, and before I go out and deal with it, I use it. I don't even lay down, and if I'm in the car, you can literally breathe this way anywhere, everywhere.
That's excellent. I think that's something that we often overlook, because we always want to fix it, and we don't think that, well, how is a breath work going to fix my problems? And at the end of the day, our problems are actually more of our relationships to certain events and circumstances. Maybe they're not exactly the triggers. It's more how we react to those triggers, how we've responded to those triggers in the past. And so, this technique of calming the nervous system, because, if we're in that stress state, perhaps, whether we're not aware of it or not, but we are very impaired. We can't think properly. Our executive functions, we can't problem solve. We can't, when you're like in this rage and there's nothing that exists outside of, like, if this guy cuts you off in his car, nothing else matters except this blind red mist. It's because we can't think properly.
Exactly. And a lot of the times we are in this kind of like a fight or flight mode. We're overstimulated, especially with our with the generation, with technology, like everything, and information, the amount of information we get in a day is insane.
Yeah.
Everyone's attention span. Advertising everywhere, consume this, eat the food that we eat, a lot of the junk food that we like to indulge in for pleasure. That really affects our mood and how we just function on a day-to-day basis. And when we breathe deep, my teacher, she loves to really touch base in the spine, and she says that in our spine there's this, what word did she use? This fluid in the spine, that when we do our diaphragmatic breathing, the fluid will start to move up.
What is this fluid for?
Cerebral. It just allows our brain to function better. And a lot of the times with the food that we're eating, our lifestyle, our body's very stagnant, and we're really made out of a lot of water. And when water stagnates, that's where muck and disease and things just start to grow.
Yeah.
So that's why movement is so important, but to be able to breathe properly, that deep breathing.
So we don't atrophy.
Yes, if you believe in energy and prana, using that prana to move the fluid up the spine and into your brain, will be able to clear out our brain so much better. And we're not in that fight or flight mode all the time. That, and unfortunately, that's just kind of like a problem of our generation, and something.
Absolutely, we've evolved in so many different ways in the doing rather than the actual. We haven't mastered the being quite yet, and this whole sense of being obsessed about outside circumstantial triggers, like looking for things on the outside of us to make us whole. And like you said, we're already whole. We just need to come into the awareness of that. And you know, like what you said as well, we need people don't understand, and I don't think I fully understand yet, how good the body, the mind, our emotions are designed to feel if we give it the proper practice. It doesn't mean that we have to kill ourselves or make or live or spend the whole day practicing, but just a few little bits and pieces every day. If we can start with, 10 minutes a day. If you don't have 10 minutes for your life, you don't have a life. Start like 5 minutes in the morning, spread it out, but just find a moment and then see how that feels. I challenge you guys, if just spend 10 minutes a day, or even 5. Let's start even smaller. Start 5 minutes a day.
Do it in your bathroom.
Yeah. If you have time to go to the bathroom, you have time to breathe. Or like we're all breathing anyway, might as well do it right.
Exactly.
And then to see how that feels.
What's wonderful about the breath illumination technique and breathing into our belly is that, I like to think of our belly like a second brain. Everything that we eat, that we put in our gut, that's going to affect our brain. All the all the food, everything that is in our stomach, and that's why they say, "Oh, trust your gut." I like, this is actually our belly button. This is our intuition. This is where a lot of our intuition is. When we feel like something is wrong, we feel it drop down into our stomach. When we were anxious, when we're stressed, we feel it in our stomach. And really, to be able to send more prana, more life energy into our stomach to heal it and to clean it out.
Absolutely.
It's very key.
And I think that it's like what you said, trying to, now that we have the scientific data and the biometrics and the measurements, to really just create more awareness about, when we say directing the prana and energy and life force up and down the spine, yes, some might roll their eyes at that, but one thing I really want to be able to make very clear during this podcast is that, yes, it's very true, but it's also evidence-based. We know that we can direct breath. We know that, we can direct and if we're connected to the body, eventually able to manipulate the body. And if we can do that, energy is energy. If you don't believe in energy, like, how are you getting up in the morning? How are you moving? How is your metabolism working? And so if we're able to actually find ourselves more anchored, more deeply rooted, more connected, then we can begin to not feel so foreign in our bodies, and that we're able to because this, honestly, just breathing exercises alone has helped me incredibly. I used to go out in front of thousands of people for a concert, and I would be in that fight or flight. And when I'm in that state of stress, I can't think. My whole body freezes up. All I can think in my head is, you're going to mess it up. You're going to mess it up. Everyone's going to see, and you might as well fall down. And that's just how it is. And of course, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But with this breath work, 1-2 minutes, and it changes the whole game. So Bri, as we close, I wonder if you could just touch up. We talk a lot about the asanas that we can do to help facilitate, our well-being, especially during this time. Balance the stress with diaphragmatic breathing. I wonder if you could
close or link it all together with a quick mindfulness practice?
Link it all together in a mindfulness practice?
No, just to close everything with a mindfulness practice.
Okay. I was like, oh, well, I just want to say one more thing when I wanted to address, people that have this energy, like, what is that? Or, oh, it's so new agey, it's such a fad and everything. And I just want to touch down that it's really something we need to learn about ourselves, because everything takes energy. If you look at the world around you, just your phone, you have to plug it in something for it to have energy to work. Your car, you need gas. Everything actually that is external is running and operating with some force of energy. You know what I mean? Absolutely everything. The lights, oil, solar, wind, it's all coming from a source of energy. And we understand so much about external forces of energy, but people don't people still need to get in touch that you can cultivate energy from within. You have the power, you have the source inside of you. You're born with it. It's your God-given gift that we're born with. And it's really all tapping into our breathing. You take away your breath for 10 minutes, you're gonna die.
Mm-hmm. Well, not me.
So we need to be able to understand a little bit more of the energy inside of us. So we have so much understanding about the energy outside of us, energy sources outside of us. And I really hope that after this podcast, people will be inspired to tap into the energy inside of them and to know that they have the power inside of them to heal, to become better, to whatever quality of life that they want to live. It's within you. You don't need to look at it for a teacher or other things or a job. It's inside of you.
It's I love that, because at the end of the day, if we can't find completeness or wholeness right now, if we're expecting for something else to behave in a certain way for us to be whole, we're going to be waiting a really, really long time. And if you guys still have any doubts, then that's okay too. At the end of the day, you should always question everything before you make a decision. And so what better way to question or prove or disprove something than to try it out and figure it out for yourself. So I hope everyone will practice or just even try 5 minutes a day. Maybe you do the diaphragmatic breath work and one of the positions that Bri was talking about, and maybe a little bit of mindfulness, and then just notice. How often do we notice how we feel, how we notice how we think, rather than reacting or being so in the motion, in the thought? And just notice. And I wonder if you'll share with us what you find.
Yeah. Also, one more thing before I close is that feel free to message me. If any of you are really interested and you want a little bit more personal guidance, I guide people online all the time. So feel free to message me if you have any conditions.
Excellent. How can we get in touch with you, Bri?
I'm most active in my Instagram. I am not really on Facebook. So my
Instagram handle?
Yogic Dreams.
Yogic Dreams. YOGIC DREAMS. Yogic Dreams. And I'm gonna post it on our Facebook wall as well, so everyone gets a chance to be able to contact Bri.
Okay, so let's just take a moment to close. Just get comfortable in any easy cross-legged, any easy seating position. Say the Japanese kneeling position if that's more comfortable for you. Keep the spine nice and tall. Relax the shoulders and close the eyes. Just take a moment to reconnect with your breath. And just allowing the body to breathe organically. And begin to feel not just the breath coming in and out the nose, but really feel your breath moving through your arms, your legs, lower back, lower belly, the chest, the back of the shoulders and neck, all the way to the crown of the head. Just really feel your breath taking the shape of your entire body. You can bring your palms in prayer position and bow your head. I always like to give a short prayer of thanks. You can think about all the things you have today to be thankful for. Bow your head down. Acknowledge this conversation, this podcast, this space where we're able to have that open conversation. You can open the eyes. Namaste.
Namaste.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Bri. Everyone, once again, Bri Manglapus, thank you. You'll be back soon. But Bri, have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Everyone, I hope you'll visit Bri's Instagram page to know a little bit more about the practice. Honestly, it's such a diverse well, it's such a diverse practice to begin with, but Bri really has a beautiful understanding of it. And she's got some excellent practical strategies to be able to share, so much more than what we can cover in an hour, of course. So make sure you do visit her on her Instagram page. That's Yogic Dreams. And I'll be posting this video along with all the information for Bri that you can get in touch with on Trifactor Engage page. Once again, guys, this channel, Breakthrough in Action, this is all inspired by the community and for the community, so that we can all come together, especially during this time. Our well-being is the source that operates everything, and so we really need to be able to prioritize that. So everyone, have a beautiful rest of your evening. Good night. God bless. Be blessed and be a blessing. Namaste.
Thank you all.